Hello to Allan Savory, coming from Zimbabwe and New Mexico. You live both places?
I live in both places, about 6 months of each year in either America or Africa.
Yeah, and would you explain a little about, in headlines, what are you doing?
All we're doing is trying to enable people around the world to develop a truly sustainable agriculture that can sustain civilizations, cities, with over half the world's population now in cities. And we've, through a lot of perseverance and battling with the problems of desertification, mainly in Africa, we've discovered a way in which that can be reversed. And then we also discovered that could be used in other ways in agriculture. So we try and spread that knowledge around the world. And we are doing it on more than 40 million acres around the world at the moment. And so in a nutshell, that's it. If I had to go a little deeper, only about 18% of the world is cropland, and the rest is non-cropland agriculture, and on that we have to use livestock, and we've worked out a way where we can handle livestock differently and reverse the land degradation that we're facing over so much of the world.
And main focus is, or why you're doing this or developing it, is it climate change, erosion, healthy land, or what would you...
Well, these are really one problem. Biodiversity loss is treated as one problem, and you have different conferences, organizations, and then desertification is treated as another problem with different conferences, organizations, experts, and then climate change is treated as a separate problem, but actually they're one and the same thing. Unless you get a loss of biodiversity, desertification doesn't occur. The only reason it occurs is a loss of biodiversity and the rainfall becoming less effective, the available rainfall. So really we treat those as one. And then if you look at climate change is being caused by agriculture and oil and gas, etc. But we're tending to blame the fossil fuels mostly. But agriculture is producing more eroding soil than food globally. Agriculture has caused the great deserts of the world, the burning of billions of acres of grassland every year, the poverty, droughts, social breakdown that we're seeing in so much of Africa and different parts of the world is entirely due to agriculture, nothing to do with climate change. It's, if anything, causing climate change. So we try to get people to see how these are all just the same issue of environmental degradation that we're dealing with.
Okay, and you have a lot of thoughts about not to plow the land. Can you tell us something about that?
Those are not just us. I think globally we're beginning to realize that plowing is very much more destructive than we ever knew, and that soils build from the top down. And if you're turning a soil over periodically, you're greatly damaging the whole soil. So we're trying to get away, but that's not just us. Most people know that these days. Yeah.
Taking good things away.
Yeah. In fact, what we're finding, and I think a lot of other people around the world, is when we develop solutions to these problems we face in agriculture, ultimately we're mimicking nature. That the way nature functioned originally had taken billions of years to develop, and we really can't better it. So we're now learning to mimic nature effectively to sustain ourselves, and that, in a nutshell, again, would be one way of describing what we're doing.
So if you look at the land in Zimbabwe or New Mexico or Denmark or other places, you could do the same thing.
Absolutely.
On every continent?
Yes, absolutely identical. We could do the same thing on every continent, but in many ways it's much easier for you. So most of Denmark, you have a good distribution of humidity throughout the year. So if you rest land here, it will recover. So resting land, conservation, etc., is a powerful tool for recovery of biodiversity, land, environment here. If you do that in much more of the world, where the rainfall is seasonal in nature, and we can get 6, 8, 9 months or more of very dry with no humidity. Whether the rain is high or low doesn't matter. We get long periods with no humidity. If you rest the land there, then the millions of tons of vegetation that dies every year above ground in the dry season, it doesn't biologically decay, and it shifts to chemical breakdown, oxidation and weathering, and we start losing biodiversity. The rainfall becomes less effective, the same rainfall, and we see desertification beginning.
Yeah.
So there our problems are more difficult, and that's where we began, but we found we could solve that by increasing livestock properly managed. So if you were to come to our learning site in Africa, okay, we had about 80-90% or more bare ground, desertifying, rivers going dry, the usual thing. And because we've increased the livestock 400%, but managing them differently, we now have fish, water lilies, water, after 8 months of no rain, where we haven't known it for 100 years before. And we're now battling to keep up with the production of the land, even in dry years. So people are coming from Ethiopia to the Cape to come and see it, and that's helping spread the knowledge.
So you see a snowball effect in these years?
Yes, and we need to make that snowball roll a lot faster.
Yeah.
That means really getting through to young people who are going to have to face the future that we've giving them.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Allan.